Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, we get the right guests, we ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We're live tonight and we have just one question. What is the state of your nation? We've picked 9 of the best in terms of citizens who are also working in the public sphere to dilate on that question. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, gave a State of the Nation before the House of Parliament on Tuesday, the 27th of February. Tonight, we would hear from 9 individuals who have their own versions of the state of their nation from the perspective of their interest. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. So tonight we're looking at the state of the nation from 9 different perspectives: ethics, education, energy, youth empowerment, the economy, media, anti-corruption, the environment. We'll also look at other areas of interest with 9 interesting people. I'm not going to do interviews. I'm just going to ask them to speak for 5 minutes to the state of their nation. So who do I have on the show? I'll be speaking to John Awuni. He is the president of FABAG. He will talk about the private sector. Angel Kabonu is the president of NAGRAT. He will talk about education. We also have Ben Boakye, executive director of Africa Center for Energy Policy. He will speak on energy. Then we have Mavis Owusu-Gyamfi, who is the, you can call it the deputy executive director of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation. She will speak on the economy. Suleiman Brahima is the ED of the Media Foundation for West Africa. He's also going to speak on media. Mary Ada is the ED of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. She'll speak on anti-corruption. Daryl Bosu is the president of Arocha Ghana. He'll speak on the environment. Vera Ado is with CDD. She's a youth activist. She'll speak on youth empowerment. Last but not least is Reverend Ekuya Ofori-Boateng. She's an engineer and a priest. I'll start with her, because the question of nation building has a lot to do with ethics. And I'm going to welcome her to set the scene for us with her own view on the question, what is the state of your nation? Reverend Ekuya, good evening. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Good evening, Bernard. And good evening to your viewers and your listeners.
Wonderful. You are the only person I could find who will agree to do this on such a short notice. So thank you for saying yes. So what is the state of your nation or our nation as far as ethics is concerned?
Okay. So, Bernard, I'll dive straight into it and say that as a priest, I'll speak about this from a Christian perspective, where ethics is defined as the standards of right and wrong based on the Bible and the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, from that perspective, I would say that the state of ethics in Ghana today is the sum total of the state of ethics in each of us as individual Ghanaians. And I want to borrow from John Wesley and say that that state can be described as almost Christian. Almost Christian. I say we are almost Christian because many of us are ethical per the standards of the Bible, if and only if it serves us well. But the moment being ethical doesn't serve us well, we become less and less ethical until eventually we become downright corrupt. And because of this, if you will, convenient ethics, I would dare say that as a nation, we have a crisis of ethics. And I say this because even though over 70% of us are self-professed Christians, as a nation, we do not place a premium on doing what is right based on the Bible and based on the teachings of Jesus. And it reflects in practically every aspect of our society. It reflects in the way we throw rubbish on the streets without a care for the fact that when it rains, that rubbish that has been discarded will clog the gutters, and this will cause flooding on the streets. But you see, because it is not the streets that we personally live on that is being flooded, it's okay, and it serves us well. So that even if we have not loved our distant neighbor by littering their streets, we feel as if we've done right because we've loved our immediate neighbor by keeping their streets clean. And that is why I say we are almost Christian. Again, it reflects in the way we build our roads, for instance. Many of our roads, their asphalt is half as thick as it needs to be, leading to premature potholes that have caused accidents, some that have caused people to lose their lives. But because putting the right quantity of asphalt will affect our profit, we weigh our ethics and we weigh the cost of the Prado that we want to buy, and then we build the road or build the hospital or build the school, however we want to, at a substandard level. Then we walk away knowing that we haven't done the right thing. We know, and other people, the people we bribed along the way, also know that what we have done is unethical. But everyone is silent. Instead, we convince ourselves that at least the road is there, at least the hospital is there. After all, and that is why I say we are almost Christian. And yet, that same contractor will go to church and pay tithes from the money that was stolen from the job, and all the congregation will stretch their hands over him and bless him for how generous he is, even though there are some in the congregation who know exactly how that money was acquired, some who even benefited from this money. We all know that it is not right by the standards of Christ. And yet we hide behind tithes and say that the contractor has done well because he brought a tithe of his booty to God. Again, almost Christian. It is to the point where some in society, especially our youth, have actually lost track of what is ethical and what is not. So that things like, oh, when you are going for the meeting, you make sure that you prepare something for the people, has become a normal part of the cost of doing business. And I say that this is a crisis of ethics because the level of misconduct, people deliberately doing what is wrong, from the board chairman to the gatesman, has permeated and eroded our society to the point where it's a threat to our nation building and it's a threat to our survival. And the only way we are going to come out of this crisis of ethics is when the individual Ghanaian, first of all, does what is right, and secondly, calls out what is wrong without fear or favor. Because when we do what is right, but then we deliberately turn a blind eye to what is wrong, then that in itself is unethical. It just enables this behavior of being unethical. We have to be bold enough as Ghanaians to speak the truth to each other and to speak truth to power. It's important that as Ghanaians, we don't forget that for every King David amongst us, there must be a Nathan who can rebuke and call out unethical behavior in his leader. If we fail to do this, Bernard, then the ethics of the whole nation fails to rise up to the standard of Christ himself. And that is why if you ask me, what is the state of ethics in Ghana today? I would say that we have a crisis of ethics, a crisis for which all of us are responsible, and a crisis for which we alone can liberate ourselves. So that is my view, my take on the state of ethics in Ghana. Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you, Reverend Ikuya. That was amazing. The state of the ethics of the nation is the state of our individual ethics collectively. And it's not enough to do what is right. We must also call out what is wrong. And I think the point has been fantastically made. Reverend Ikuya is an engineer by training and a priest as well. We are on the citizen state of the nation. We're moving next to energy. Benjamin Boakye is the executive director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. He's going to tell us what is the state of the nation as far as energy is concerned. The president spoke a lot about the power sector on the state of the nation yesterday. Ben, good evening. Thanks for joining us on this special program.
Thanks for having me, Bernard. And good evening to the rest.
Again, thank you for being part of this. What is the state of the nation as far as the energy area is concerned? You have 5 minutes. Ben, go ahead.
Yes, Bernard, I think, first of all, the challenges of the energy sector are not constant. You're always going to have new challenges. You're going to have new situations that require leadership to address. And if you ask me what the fundamental challenges of the energy sector are today, there are inefficiencies, waste that are actually crippling the entire nation. And therefore, if anybody wants to reflect on what the problems of the energy sector is, I expect those challenges to emerge, and also a deliberate attempt to address those challenges. And the waste, as I talked about, is the fact that now we can't, as a nation, sell electricity and make money to pay the value chain. So those who are generating power are owed, those who are transmitting power are owed, those who are supplying fuel are owed. And the only thing we hear from the president is that we want to isolate the cost of fuel and just discuss what we owe the generators of power. I don't think that's how you address the problem. Either way, the cost burden is on the people. The cost burden is on the citizens. So whether it is 1.2 billion or 1.6 billion, we are in the billions. And that is scary enough for us to have heard how we stop that kind of bleeding of our resources to rather channel the revenues to development. Because what we need to be able to build the schools, the hospitals, and take care of our people, the vulnerable people of this country, is what we are using to pay electricity bill, because people are failing to deliver on their responsibility to ensure that power generated can be sold. So that is the problem that we have today. Once we have generation plants, we are not making any sense comparing ourselves to the past government, because their challenges were different. Their challenges were to bring in power plants to solve doomsday. Once we have the power plants, we have to move on to what other challenges we have as a country and address the challenges. And the challenges we have today are people who are not delivering on their mandate to make sure that the public purse is not sacrificed the way we are doing. We are spending over $2 billion every year of our hard-earned money to be able to sustain the light and keep the light on. So when you tell the people that the light is on, at what cost and at whose expense? It is the same people who are paying for it. So how do we address this sustainably? I was expecting that to come from the president, and unfortunately that did not happen. And I'm hoping that in the coming days, we will see pragmatic effort to really deal with this. Otherwise, the sustainability of Ghana is really under threat. And we've been talking about this for so long, and it's constantly on deaf ears, and we keep paying those hard-earned money into this. And we keep piling levies on ourselves, to be able to address it. We had EXLA. At some point, they introduced a Delta, which is also money being charged at the pump to be able to address the same energy sector debt situation. And we don't know when another tariff will be imposed on us for us to be able to address the escalating challenges that we have in the energy sector. So if you ask me what I expected, what the situation really is in the energy sector, it is one singular sector that is bleeding our budget, and we haven't had solution for years, and the state of the nation failed to address it.
So you're not that optimistic, Ben, about the energy sector. I didn't intend to ask questions, but what's the one big thing we need to do to salvage the sector, you think?
I think we have to go back to the drawing board. We agree that government cannot do it. Government, once they touch where revenue is and the politicians have control, corruption breeds, procurement takes over, and that is essentially what they have done. When we agreed to fix the energy sector in 2014, the commitment that we were looking for the private sector to salvage the situation and improve the distribution end was about $500 million. Government has spent almost $700 million on ECG, and still the inefficiencies have rather deepened and they have worsened. So it clearly tells you that once the politics is involved, we are not going to fix any problem. How did we invest that money and still fail to deliver? The inefficiencies at the time we decided to bring in the private sector was around 23%. Today, the inefficiency has gone to over 30%, when we have spent far more than we expected the private capital to deliver. So it's just the politics and the corruption that is robbing all of us our resources, because the politicians are the ones doing the procurement and managing the sector the way they want, and then they sacrifice everything else to pay for the electricity bill.
Thank you very much. Ben Boakye is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Specialization of the Point of View, Citizens, State of the Nation. We've heard from Reverend Nukia Ofori-Boateng on ethics. Ben Boakye just spoke to us on energy. Mary Ada is the Executive Director of Ghana Integrity Initiative. Her area is anti-corruption and good governance. Mary, thank you so much for joining us on this special program. Good evening to you. What is the state of the nation as far as the anti-corruption fight is concerned?
Thank you very much, Bernard. Good evening to you, and good evening to the other panelists and your viewers alike. Let me begin by saying that the state of anti-corruption in Ghana is one where the policymaker, the executive for that matter, is doing what they believe is right by their standards, whichever those are, and the citizen sits and watches aloof while the country continues to dwindle within the faith, and the results of the various surveys that have been conducted show. Let me quickly say that, for instance, if you look at the Corruption Perception Index, over the last 4 years, that's from 2020 to 2024, we have stagnated as a people. And stagnation is not just the word, because if you do a thorough analysis, you would realize that we have, in the past 12, 13 years, made a -2 mark. And so if it is -2, it means we are negatively retrogressing in the fight against corruption. The state is pretending to fight corruption while they are doing something else. Citizens sit aloof and increasingly are becoming very accepting of corrupt behaviors. That is the unfortunate situation we see. And yet they continue to say that in the policy making and implementation spaces, our democracy is dwindling. We are beginning to see negative trends. We see that as a people, we have moved from the mark of 75 during the 2017 to now about 35%. And that is a big worry. A worry in the sense that from everywhere around us, we have seen that the benefits, the negative effects of governance and anti-corruption have fueled so much distrust in systems, which have led to what I do not even want to talk about. The state of corruption, again, we see in this country is one of the worrying trends of the rising cost of elections, which have been fueled unnecessarily by a largely unregulated campaign financing regime as a people. And study after study has indicated that there is so much you need to invest to be able to get appointed or elected into office. And the effect of that on having to engage in behaviors that are not acceptable. We have seen it manifest in the weakening of the horizontal structures of accountability within our systems. We have seen it reflect in the weak public ethics that we are currently operating with. We have seen it reflect in the seriously normalization of corruption and the politicization of our public service. Unfortunately, we have seen the fight against corruption begin to show that if people are accepting it, because citizens are asking when it comes to most of the instances, this, recently what happened during the campaigns for elections at the various levels of the parties. So citizens have also realized that at this point, what they need to do is to also seek and then to grab some of the monies that are being put out there. We have seen the state of corruption being fueled more by the rhetoric than action. Most of the public sector institutions, including the executive, are seen to be talking about the issue more than action. We have seen that in most of the instances, we do a lot of public awareness, and yet it does not reflect in actual investigations, prosecutions, and sanctioning of the corrupt. And this has been fueled also by the restrictive nature of our legislation, particularly when it comes to the definition of what exactly corruption is. And so people get away with all sorts of wrongdoing which constitutes corrupt behavior or corruption and corruption-related offenses. And because adjudication is not that trending when it comes to our laws, then we see people get away, and for that matter, fueling and promoting further behaviors in this regard. We have seen institutions being set up, a lot of duplication of functions, a lot of theft wars happen, and yet very few resources invested in the fight against corruption. So we are where we are, a very pathetic sight, not too encouraging, and yet we are restricted and constrained.
Thank you very much, Mary Ada, for keeping it brief but hitting all the major points. She is the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, speaking to us on anti-corruption. This is still the point of view. We're looking at various thematic areas as part of our citizens' engagement on the state of the nation. Let's move to the environment. We've dealt with ethics. We've spoken about energy. We've dealt with anti-corruption. Daryl Bosu is the Executive Director of Arocha Ghana. They are into the environment. Daryl, thanks for agreeing to do this. What is the state of the nation as far as the environment is concerned? You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, Bernard, and good evening to all. And thank you for having me. I think that listening to the president, a lot of the issues that really bordered on the environment were excluded from the statement, which we thought that he did that maybe deliberately because they were too controversial, and we have not seen a lot of positive outcomes in those areas. One of them was clearly missing, which was the Galamsey issues, which was clearly missing in the statement the president made. And that already testifies to the fact that Galamsey is still with us, because if you move across the country, we see the impact, the effect of Galamsey all over the place. Our rivers and water bodies have not cleared as has been expected. We see more pollution in a lot of the places. I mean, you cannot count one river body now in this country that you can say that is very clean. And it's not only our rivers that have been polluted, our health has also been put at risk, because with these mining activities, we've seen the unprecedented pollution by heavy metals and residues in these river bodies and all of that. And this is also even affecting our food system, particularly on farmlands, where you have seen most farmers returning to these lands that have been mined and abandoned in most areas. Again, critical to the discussion on the environment has been the unprecedented assault on our forest reserves. I mean, we've seen in the last year, I would say in the last 2 years, several laws and several executive instruments that have been passed that have come to take away several key protection for forest reserves in this country. We can talk about LI 2462, which has come to expose some of Ghana's most pristine and critical forest ecosystem to logging. And now we have on record administrative instruction from the Ministry of Lands instructing the Forestry Commission to open up our forest reserves for logging. And these are forest reserves that historically have not been put up for logging, but the Ministry for Lands has given instruction to the Forestry Commission to open them up for logging. So it tells you that the government has no intent to really commit to protecting our forest reserves, as they have said on many platforms at COP28, COP27, and COP26. As you know, Ghana is in partnership with the US on what we call Forest and Climate Leadership Partnership. And in all of these things, you only hear sweet words, but no commitment to real action on the ground. And again, very crucial to mention is the fact that the president talks about planting of 42 million trees, and also again about 690,000 degraded forests cultivated. All of these things are good, but it has not reflected in the extent to which the integrity of our forest ecosystems have been protected. We have seen more and more forest reserves being under siege from illegal mining and logging activities, and there's clearly no commitment on the state agencies to really address with it. That said, I can also mention the fact that we have also been confronted with an unprecedented onslaught of activities relating to attacks on urban forests, and we know of the EI 144, which came to digazette portions of that Achimota forest. This issue has still not been resolved, and we know that the government is even taking steps to go ahead with planning and development of these areas. So we really have serious issues with the government commitment on these areas. What has also been very shocking that in the face of all of these, government has become the engine of also perpetuating an injustice that really led to the passing of the emissions levy, which we say that in view of Ghana's commitment and also Ghana's least responsibility for climate and the issues that we are faced with, Ghanaians shouldn't be taxed for the emissions levy. And this is something the government has not taken into consideration. This issue is still an issue of public debate, and we want the government to kind of rescind decisions to ensure that these levy is enforced on Ghanaians. So you look at all the sectors, forestry, water resource management, and even on the biodiversity conservation, all of that, because our forests are being destroyed, our biodiversity habitats and all of that are also going to be exposed. And I think the president was very, very strategic in not mentioning or touching on them at all, just because it's too crucial for them too crucial and sensitive, and he knows that there has not been any positive action on that. And so to that extent, I think that there's more to be done. And so far, it has been very abysmal on the part of government in relation to these issues.
Thank you very much, Daryl Bosu. Daryl is the Executive Director of Arocha, giving us his view on the state of the nation as far as the environment is concerned. So we've dealt with ethics, we've dealt with energy, anti-corruption, environment. When we come back, we have education, we have economy, we have youth empowerment, we have media, and we have private sector. On this special edition of The Point of View, stay with us.
How far with your internship?
To be honest, I'm so nervous about starting this new role on Monday.
Oh, please. I know you'll be great at it. You should be worried about what benefits they have. Example, do they have health insurance?
I doubt they will have that for interns. But no shaking. I have NHIS already.
After you son a line, ting.
Ina, look at you. What are you going to do in the office when you can just download your app to register for an NHIS membership?
Yes, my people. You heard right. You can now download and register your membership on my NHIS app. No long queues or tedious paperwork. All you need is your Ghana card to register for yourself and for others. Once you register, you get a new digital NHIS card on your phone. My NHIS app gives you access to credentialed health facilities and services across the country. NHIS covers over 95% of disease conditions in Ghana. Access to healthcare just got easier.
Now let me sign up quickly. Me, Seth, I'm starting work next month.
Whether it's 1924, 2024, or 2124, we've always known that you are driven by your sense of safety and well-being. It is what drives us to see you through from start to finish, from small to big. And in the last 100 years, as you have evolved, so have we also expanded to serve you in many ways. From cradle to grave, with expertise in insurance, life, pensions, properties, health, and for those beautiful memorable goodbyes. It's 2024, and in all our markets, our pedigree is recognized, our strength respected, our expertise valued, and our solutions sought by all who desire an advantage in life. Experience the time-tested and truly trusted 100 years legacy of Ghana's oldest insurer. Take charge of your future now. Insurance, life, pensions, property management, funeral services, health insurance. enterprise to your advantage.
I love President Charcoal. Why?
When there are so many other charcoal toothpaste.
That's both charcoal and lemon.
Oh, does it?
Yes. Look right here.
Yes. Pepsodent Charcoal has two of nature's powerful whitening ingredients. With the power of activated charcoal and lemon essence, it removes stains and whitens teeth naturally.
Convinced?
Well, I am. Just look at your beautiful Pepsodent smiles.
For naturally whiter teeth, Pepsodent Charcoal. Pepsodent.
Welcome back. We have a special edition of The Point of View tonight. We're looking at the state of the nation from the perspective of 9 citizens. So far, we've dealt with ethics, we've dealt with energy, anti-corruption, and before the break, environment. My next guest has been working in the youth space for a few years now. She's done Oxfam, she's done CDD. She's a youth activist, Vera Abena Ado. She'll give us the state of the nation as far as youth empowerment is concerned. Vera, good evening. Thank you for joining us on The Point of View tonight. What is the state?
Good evening, Bernard.
Yes, what is the state of the nation as far as youth empowerment is concerned? Go ahead.
Thank you for having me and also for the substantive conversation you are inviting on this issue. The state of the Ghanaian youth is a reflection of Ghana we have today. It is more like, show me your young people and I'll show you the kind of country or economy you have. Just to give a bit of context to our discussion, in Ghana, when we say youth, we mean persons aged between 15 to 35. And this is according to the Ghana National Youth Policy, and it's also in line with the African Youth Charter. So who are Ghana's youth? In Ghana, persons aged 15 to 35 constitute 38% of the population, while children under age 15 make up another 35%, according to the Ghana Statistical Service. So together, that is about 73% of our population. This means that we have a youthful population, so it is only smart for any nation to be deliberate and intentional about youth development. I want to discuss the state of this youth demographic along 2 main indicators. 1, participation in the economy, and then 2, participation in politics and governance. Let's look at the first one, participation in the economy. What does the data tell us? The Afrobarometer Round 9 Survey 2022 findings show that young people are more educated than their elders. We can conclude from that they constitute a larger percentage of skilled labor force. However, the same survey is also telling us that young people are least employed, also the most underemployed, and this is in respect to the formal economy. Also, just 3 days ago, the government statistician tweeted that on average, more than 3/4, that is 77.4% of the total unemployed persons in the first quarter of 2023 comprise age 15 to 35. So this is the state of young people's participation in our economy. It stands less than 23%. So what do young people do? They have to travel, they have to hustle, betting, or are the main foot soldiers of the papa economy, as the economists call it, the gig economy. And what we know about the gig economy is that it's very fragile and so does not offer young people true stability. This leads me to my next point, Bernard, that I want us to talk about immigration. The desire to immigrate is higher than ever, according to OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation Development. 44% of Ghanaians express the intention to migrate permanently from the country. And so when you disaggregate this information, you see that it is not only the unemployed young people who are interested in immigrating, it is also critical professional classes, as the nurses and teachers. So the thing about these indicators is that they speak to each other. So for instance, young people who are bent on immigrating are less likely to create jobs and to create businesses, meaning that we are losing out on potential job creation endeavors. And government upon government have tried through our Ministry of youth and sports. We have the National Youth Authority. There are a lot of programs, NACOB, Youth Start, but it appears not getting the results that we want. So what are we doing? What is working? Why are we not getting the results that we desire? What is wrong with all that you are doing? It means that there's something wrong somewhere. And Bernard, maybe this raises a lot of questions for another conversation if we are not doing our targeting right. So finally, I want us to look at participation, young people participation in politics and governance. Meaningful youth participation, Bernard, has been limited to just voting an election. But when we talk about meaningful youth participation, it means we are ensuring that voices of young people, their perspective, ideas are not only heard, but also valued and integrated into the decision-making processes that affect our lives. Protest is one of the many ways that young people can express their own views and voices as part of governance process. Unfortunately for young people or young Ghanaians, when they have come together, mobilized to protest, we have seen intimidation and police brutality. We've seen the demonstration with the country groups, how the police treated young people who went on the street to express or voice out their own displeasure with the economy and wanting to be part of the governance. And so to conclude, I think that the challenges that young people face in Ghana are not necessarily different from challenges young people in other countries face. What is different, however, is that other countries intentionally put in measures to recognize and address the challenges that young people or youth face. So finally, I would say that they need to reorient societal mindset of challenges facing young people. We have normalized the hustle mindset. In normalizing that, we have shifted the problems from society and the state to the youth themselves. So they say we are lazy, sell this, do that. Why are you not doing anything? You are sitting at home. And so it's important that we are intentional and also deliberate about youth development. Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you, Vera. Fantastic perspectives on the youth participation in economy, youth participation in governance, what Ghana has to do. I really appreciate that, Vera Addo, a youth activist, now with CDD, still on our special state of the nation. This is not a Q&A. This is just to take statements, so we appreciate that a lot. Let me move to the private sector. Now, FABAG is the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana. John Awuni is the president. He has a lot to say. He has just 5 minutes. I'm just going to jump straight to him. John, what is the state of the nation as far as the private sector is concerned, using the Food and Beverage Association as the entry point?
Thank you very much, Bernard. Good evening and good evening to your listeners. Thank you for the opportunity. I will quickly say that, Bernard, as you are an economist, so am I. I am a development economist. And in economics, we say that the private sector is the engine of growth. And if we are going by this statement that the private sector is the engine of growth, currently, the Ghanaian economy has collapsed, and we are trying to resuscitate it through IMF support. If that is so, as that is so, that clearly shows that the private sector is also dead. Our private sector, Bernard, is no different from what it used to be 21 years ago. We are still largely informal sector. A lot of the people in the private sector fear to go to formalize their businesses because the nature and the manner in which government organizations and institutions kind of are the business. The private sector is still really under serious, tremendous taxes. Only last year alone, we have COVID levies still remaining, VAT increase from 12.5 to 50%. We have carbon emissions tax, growth and sustainability tax. I can go on and on. Our interest rates still remain very high. We have inflation rates remaining very high. Our currency remains highly unstable. That makes the players keep losing their working capital by the day. We started this year almost with about 12 cities. Today now we are going about 13 cities to $1. Indeed, the forest bureaus are quoting above 13 cities. And just that alone, if you look at it in kind of a big amount, you can imagine how much the private sector is losing. Clearly, there's high level of unemployment in the country. That shows that the private sector is not doing well. And as a result of the high level of taxation and the poor performance of the private sector, people have devised various means of surviving making their businesses survive. Bernard, we are in an era where most players in the private sector have started looking at and repositioning their businesses in the neighboring countries, and Cote d'Ivoire and Togo. Most importers right now, I should say, are routing their business, their imports through Togo and through Cote d'Ivoire. And that has shown clearly in our import data. The Bank of Ghana last year, in the last quarter, released a report and showed that there was a reduction in imports by 14%, even though we thought that that was far more than that. And clearly, when you look at the import data, and I will use one significant import data for rice. Rice in 2021, we imported about 805,000 metric tons of rice. In 2022, it came down to 650,000 metric tons, came down to 440 or so in 2023. And that was largely due to the fact that people have decided to route their goods through Cote d'Ivoire and through Togo. And Bernard, let me tell you, that became a very serious thing and for players in the industry, because people were undercutting. And those who could not route their goods through Togo and Cote d'Ivoire could not sell in the market. You went into the market, you find out a lot of French label goods in our market. And that clearly killed it, to the chance of killing many businesses. So to say, the private sector is not doing so well. But one thing clearly that came to the fore in the presentation of the State of the Nation address, which clearly saddens me, is our data, our statistics, the use of our statistics, the sources of our statistics. Bernard, I know we do not have time, but I will encapsulate my story shortly in a manner. On January 22nd, I took up a data from a private person from the port. And we've done that for a couple of years. And I took this rice data, import statistics, because we wanted to demonstrate to the government that there was smuggling happening seriously through the Togo and Cote d'Ivoire borders. I took these figures, and that is the 805,000, 650,000 metric tons 2022, and 440 or 50,000 cities, 50,000 metric tons in 2023, and gave it to a journalist in the multimedia sector. And then I said that, listen, we need to highlight this for the government to see what they can do to combat smuggling and combat and see how they can revise their tax regime so that they can encourage imports through the Tema port. The next day, 2020, the journalist took this figure and said they were going to contact Minister of Agri to react to the figures. Next day, 2023, I saw Minister of Agri took the figures and said rice imports have reduced by 45.45%, and as a result of government planting for foods and jobs. I screenshot the story and sent it to the gentleman in the multimedia, and I said, listen, this story has been twisted. It is not acceptable. Where did they get the figures from? How did they arrive at that? I have generated this story, and how come Minister of Agri is now inheriting these figures? If rice import has reduced by 45.45% as a result of planting for foods and jobs, why did the Minister of Trade only in December they took an LI to Parliament seeking to restrict imports of same?
So let me get you straight. You're saying that the comment the president made that rice imports have come down was actually based on wrong information, and that you were trying to communicate increase in the usage of other ports and smuggling into our country, which the journalists misconstrued to mean rice imports had come down, which the government also misconstrued to mean PFJ had reduced rice imports. So the information the president put out was actually based on wrong information. That's what you're trying to say. Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely wrong information, so to say. And Bernard, my sadness is that it has been same since the year 2000. Our data in this country is absolutely a major problem, because if you misinterpret the data, then your policy formulation is going to be wrong.
All right. So thank you. We'll probably explore this on a different date. This is not the time for this. But thank you, John Awuni. Not sounding positive at all. Now, earlier on, we had the take on the economy from Mavis Owusu Jemfi with the Africa Center for Economic Transformation the state of the nation as far as the economy is concerned. Let's hear her.
Thank you, Ben, for the opportunity. Let me start with the good news. Growth is increasing since we secured the IMF loan. Last year, our growth rate was 1.5%. This year, it's projected to grow between 2.8% and 3.5%. The CD is showing signs of stability. Inflation has gone down from a high of 54% in December 2022 to 23.5% in January this year. The not so good news. We are not transforming as a country, which means we continue to be vulnerable to shocks. In the recent Asset Africa Transformation Index, Ghana scored 19.1 out of 100, which means we are a low transformer. Our growth is also concentrated in a handful of sectors. So, for example, the growth that is projected this year, most of it will come from the mining sector. The mining sector will not generate enough jobs, which means that our unemployment situation will at best stabilize, but most likely get worse. Third, even though inflation has fallen, it is still way too high. The cost of basic things like food, water, electricity is too high for the ordinary Ghanaian. Since December 2022, the minimum wage has only increased by 10%. This means that people are not earning enough to keep up with inflation. So their standard of living is simply getting worse. We are seeing more people get hungry. And the World Bank is projecting that between 2023 and 2025, our poverty levels will increase to nearly 34%. Despite all the efforts that is being made towards economic recovery, we will continue to face challenges this year. Our weak economy means we will struggle to attract foreign investment, which will affect our balance sheet, making the CD fragile and our exchange rate unstable. It's an election year, and we are likely to face the same overspending we see in every election year, which is not good given our current fiscal challenges. And we are anticipating that there will be external shocks like fluctuations in commodity prices, and also the tightening of US monetary policy will continue to pose a risk for countries like ours and others. Finally, corruption will continue to affect us adversely. Corruption is not unique to Ghana, and it's not unique to any administration, but we need to address it. ISODEC has estimated that Ghana loses about 3 billion every year from corruption. Think about it. This is the same amount of money we went to collect from the IMF. Imagine what we could do with that money. But for me, it is not all doom and gloom. We have opportunities going forward, and we must use the momentum and attention of the election cycle to nudge our leaders in the right direction. First, we all need to agree on a national transformation plan that is focused on diversifying our economies and making us more export competitive. This will require us to invest in industries that can create truly Ghanaian and truly African products so that we can export regionally and globally. We will need to invest in the skills, infrastructure, and technology that will enhance our productivity in key industries. There is nothing stopping us from growing our textiles, chocolate, art, pharmaceutical, agro-processing, etc. industries. We can do this most successfully if we collaborate with other African countries. We need to build globally competitive value chains, drawing on our respective strengths and reducing the cost of production in the continent. Second, as we diversify our economies and improve our export competitiveness, we must ensure we broaden our tax base so that we can generate our own resources to invest in services and job creation for our citizens rather than having to rely on borrowing all the time. Finally, we must be fiscally prudent. This means spending wisely, getting rid of wastage, and saving for a rainy day. By doing this, we will ensure that we build an economy that is strong, is resilient to shocks, but most importantly, is able to create jobs, increase household incomes, reduce poverty, and broaden our tax base. But Ben, we can't wait for tomorrow to get on track. We need to start doing all of this now because, as we all know, tomorrow is not promised.
Wow. Awesome. Mavis, that was amazing. Mavis Owusu Gyamfi, Africa Center for Economic Transformation. Special edition of The Point of View. When we come back, we'll try and squeeze in education and media. Stay with us.
Your health is in your hands, but at some point, it passes on to us. At Mintuba Hospital and Coloproctology Center, we believe that quality healthcare isn't a privilege, it's a right. Equipped with cutting-edge technology, we are fully prepared to effectively deal with all colorectal and proctological conditions. Our team of highly skilled doctors, surgeons, and nurses are renowned for their expertise in minimally invasive and painless laser, ligature, and longoproctological surgery. We are committed to providing a wide range of services to meet the diverse needs of our patients. Mintuba Hospital, your health is our priority. Visit Mintuba Hospital today or call us at 0244 581 541 or 0271 054 204. Mintuba Hospital, in to serve a peculiar health need.
Have you been to Aqua Safari lately? Let me share my experience with you at the new Aqua Safari Resort. When you arrive, you're greeted by warm smiles and introduced to your 24-hour butler who already has your itinerary sorted. Enjoy water sports activities like jet ski rides, kayaking, water sliding, flyboarding, and castnet fishing. You can even have your lunch here on the boat cruise. Experience horseback riding, tennis, and some golfing amongst a host of other activities. Let the tour guides take you through the sceneries of the Volta River, the mangrove forest, the friendliness of the animals, local and exotic birds, while you pet and feed them. You can have this large space for your conferences, corporate retreats, and so many activities as part of the package. We chose to have our breakfast with a beautiful sunrise right in front of our cabin. We had an amazing experience and I can't wait to return for more.
Visit Aqua Safari Eco Resort in Ghana, bringing you closer to nature.
Ow.
Let me see.
She's never had a toothache before.
There might be a cavity. Don't you use Pepsodent?
We used to, but I'll try the new one.
Ah, that's why.
But doesn't every toothpaste give cavity protection?
Not really. Pepsodent's Cavity Fighter repairs tiny invisible holes to give 10 times stronger teeth. Will you trust Pepsodent?
Definitely. Pepsodent, 10 times stronger teeth.
Use Pepsodent's Cavity Fighter.
Welcome back. Point of View tonight is trying to bring you 9 perspectives on the state of the nation. Let's see what we can do with education. Angel Kabonu is the president of NAGRA. She's joining us by phone with some quick thoughts on the state of the nation as far as education is concerned. It's almost an impossible job to do in 2 minutes. Angel, thanks for joining us. Go straight ahead and tell us the state of the nation as far as education is concerned.
Thank you very much, Bernard. You recall that over time we've been calling for bringing stakeholders together for us to look at this free senior high school situation and then the entirety of education. The president alluded to it in one way or the other when he made a statement that ideas can be tolerated and ideas can be brought on board. I think it is a subtle way of accepting the fact that there's a need for a conversation for us to be able to iron out some rough edges of the free senior high school concept. So that to me is an introduction to a conversation, and we need to latch on it and see how we can expand the horizons of that conversation, because that conversation needs to be had. Bernard, it is very important we have that conversation. As you and I speak today, public basic schools are on the downward trend, seriously, and we need to look at that. And then we also need to look at bursaries for tertiary institutions, those poor people who have passed the senior high school exams and cannot enter into universities. So we are calling for a conversation of stakeholders brought together, facilitated by very well-informed intellectual facilitators, so that we can find solution to the problems of education in this country. And don't forget, the unions have also sent their manifesto to the various political parties, our proposals, so that they can incorporate our proposals into their manifestos. This time, we don't want people to come and stand on platforms and make flowery promises. Promises have to be based on what is contained in the various manifestos of the various political parties.
Thank you very much, Angel Kabonu. We will take that from you, ending tonight's edition. So we had an ambitious night, State of the Nation from 9 perspectives. We started off with Reverend Ekuya Ofori-Boateng, who's an engineer and a priest. She spoke on ethics. Then we heard from Bemboachi of ASEP. He spoke on energy. We also heard from Mary Ada, Ghana Integrity Initiative Anti-Corruption. Daro Boso of Arocha spoke on environment. Then Vera Ado, who's a youth activist, she's with CDD. She spoke on youth empowerment. John Awuni of the Food and Beverage Association spoke on private sector. And then we heard from Mavis Owusu Jemfi from Africa Center for Economic Transformation. She spoke on the economy. And Angel Kabonu of NAGRA spoke on education. Well, Suleiman is a media man, so we can say that we didn't have the time to put him on. So Sule, I'll speak to you on radio tomorrow morning. But thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let's know your state of the nation. Share the video with your viewers and followers, and let's hear from you in the comment section if you are watching this online about the state of your nation. We'll see you next time on The Point of View. Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.